Welcome back, everyone. This is Big Kev here, and today we have a special episode of the Throw Zone. So today we have Payton Otterdahl. I'll let him introduce himself, and we're very thankful to have you on the podcast.
Hello, everyone. Big Kev, thank you for having me. Most importantly, thank you for flying me out so that I could be out here, paying for my hotel in the nicest hotel in downtown Lincoln. No, just kidding. I live 6 minutes away from Kevin, so I
It's almost walked.
just right over here. Yeah, I probably could have walked here, but decided to drive it since it's 10 degrees outside right now. But yes, as Kevin said, my name is Payton Otterdahl, also known as P-Train Throws on the social medias.
Give him a follow.
I am a two-time Olympian for Team USA. I was also a two-time NCAA champion in college in the shot put and the weight throw, and from Minnesota, just a small town kid who's worked his way up to some of the highest levels of shot put and aiming higher.
So our sports and the view of the world, even.
Yes. So thanks again for having me on.
Well, I'm glad you're able to make it here. So I guess as we get going, I just want to give a thank you to our sponsor, Lincoln Mics. If you ever needed some custom microphone work or microphone repair, go check them out. And then remember, if you purchase with Bitcoin, they do take 50% off. So keep that in mind when you're looking to either get some custom mics done or any repairs that could be done. But now we'll kind of get started here. So we want to hear about like what your story is, where it all started. So kind of starting from page one here, what inspired you to throw?
So when I was a kid, I grew up in kind of the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. My parents were, well, my dad was a college athlete. He played basketball, and my mom she never played in college, but she was doing a ton of sports growing up. So my parents always put us in lots of sports growing up. It wasn't even an option. We got to choose what sports we wanted to do, but we had to do them. So we were doing 4 to 5 sports year round, always. If we didn't like one, we had to swap it for another. We never got to just, do nothing.
So it was year round of competing.
Yes, year round. So I can't remember exactly what age you get put into track. When you're in elementary school, they kind of just make you do everything. But once you got into middle school, that's when they allowed us to start throwing. And I found out pretty quick that I did not like running. I especially didn't like distance. And I wasn't a very fast sprinter compared to the other kids. And I was kind of just naturally better than my classmates at throwing. I wasn't like a huge kid or anything in middle school, but I was over 6 feet tall. So I guess that's bigger than the average kid. And throwing just came very naturally, and it was pretty sweet. You get to just huck heavy stuff for practice.
Exactly.
Everybody else is out running until they're sick.
Yeah.
I found out pretty quick I liked throwing, and I was a little bit better than everybody else that was at my age.
So that made it fun.
Continued it, yes. It wasn't necessarily my favorite sport growing up. I would say my favorite sport was probably wrestling. I did that for 5 years. I started in 8th grade and did it through senior year. That was probably my favorite sport, but my best was track. So that's why I decided to go off to college in that.
So like what point of high school did that become clear to you that you wanted to pursue track?
Probably not until my sophomore year I started taking it seriously. I remember freshman year, it's springtime in Minnesota, and the weather's finally getting nice after the long winter. All I wanted to do when school ended was just hang out with my friends. I didn't want to go do practice, whatever. So I actually skipped track practice quite a lot my freshman year, and I would just show up and do the meets. And I remember I threw something like 45 feet, which, isn't a crazy mark or anything, but for a freshman
That's a good
in Minnesota, it was a good mark. So I remember that I before that meet, I asked my mom and my dad, I'm like, hey, I kind of want to quit track just so I can hang out with my friends. I don't want to do a spring sport. And my mom told me, like, this is something that you could be pretty good at. You seem to be better than a lot of the other kids your age. You could potentially earn a scholarship to this in college. So after I threw that 45-foot mark, the upperclassmen and the coaches, they talked to me and were like, hey, you need to do this. You could be really good at this sort of thing. And one of them was Brant Burgess. He was a big, huge decision maker of why I went to NDSU. We can talk a little bit more about that in a bit.
Of course.
But he was one of my upper class. I think he was a senior when I was a freshman in high school, and he like sat me down and talked to me. He's like, you need to take this seriously. Like you could have a future in this. And so between him and my parents telling me to do it, I decided to keep doing it. And then I didn't skip any more practices after that point, and my marks got a lot better over the years. So that's kind of how I decided that throwing was the path that I might want to take in the future.
So then, did you focus primarily on shot put, or did you do discus as well for basic training? And I know you compete in both.
Yes, I actually didn't. I didn't throw disc at all my freshman year. I only did shot put. And then sophomore year, I started throwing discus again. And then from then on, I always threw disc. I want to say as a sophomore, my marks in throws were, I think I threw 49 feet in the shot and like 135 in discus, which again, were like decent marks for sophomores in Minnesota. Like that's not a crazy mark by any means anywhere else, but they were decent there. So kept doing it. Junior year marks, 56 feet in the shot, and
that's from the glide, right?
Yep. I was a glider in high school, and even through part of college. But I'm trying to remember what I threw as a junior. I think like 163 or 162 or something like that.
Yep.
In the discus, and senior year got my mark up to 61 feet in shot and 179 in disc. So those were my high school PBs for any high schoolers that might be watching the podcast.
And now, with your experience now, I guess, as, professional with the spin, looking back, do you wish you would have tried spinning earlier in your career, or do you like how you started off with the glide?
I when I got, at least in Minnesota at the time, there were not a lot of athletes that were spinning in the state. I remember we saw a couple other throwers from other schools. They were throwing really far, but they were kind of undersized. But they were throwing like really big distances. And I remember we used to think like, oh, it's the spin. It's pretty. And, it's
kind of like how most people view sumo deadlift.
Yeah, it seemed like it was cheating at the time because no one was spinning really. And no one knew, how to coach it. My high school coach was great. He was great, but he did not coach a lot of spinners at that point, at least. That was kind of when the spin was starting to make its way down to the high school level, at least in Minnesota. So, I do wish that, hindsight, I wish that I would have started the spin a little bit earlier, but
I was the best for that situation.
Yeah, in that situation, I don't think I could have spun in high school because I didn't have a great coach for it, and there was not a lot of resources online at the time to kind of be self-taught.
Yeah, not too many online coaches back then. And
no, definitely not. So I didn't even start spinning until did a little bit my sophomore year in college. And I do wish that I would have started right away in college, but the situation was a little bit different at NDSU. But we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Once we get to the college.
So then you decided early on in high school, like you really wanted to pursue track. So then what point did you decide, like you were looking at colleges and that you ended up, I guess, committing and signing to NDSU?
Yeah, I wasn't super highly recruited out of high school. With track being so late, most of your recruitment gets done after your junior year. So having a mark of 56 feet is not crazy as a junior at all by any means. So mostly a lot of local and Midwest schools. I was recruited to the University of Minnesota, Iowa State, a couple of the other Dakota schools. But I only took 4 visits in high school, and then also the South Alabama University, or the University of South Alabama. I did take my visit there just because I had never been to Alabama before, and they offered me a pretty decent scholarship, but I decided to turn that one down.
Was it helpful that NDSU was pretty close to home for you?
Yeah, but to be honest, I didn't even want to take my visit at all to NDSU. My mom, again, had to talk me into going because I had been to Fargo before for wrestling. They have a major wrestling meet there every single winter called Rumble on the Red that has, like over 100 teams there. It's in the Fargo Dome where they play football. And so I had been to Fargo in what? That must have been probably January.
Yeah,
I wanted nothing to do with Fargo in January. That's one of the coldest places in the U.S. So I'm like, heck no, I don't want to go there. Like I've seen what.
yeah,
Like,
you've seen Fargo in their darkest hour.
but my mom's like, hey, you never know. So I did go on my visit there, and I loved it. Like the facilities were great. I think my visit was still in the winter. No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it was in the winter actually. And it was, yeah, like the facilities were awesome. They had a brand new indoor track that was great. I liked the buildings. The campus was not huge. Like that's one of the things about the University of Minnesota that I didn't like is University of Minnesota is huge. It can take 45 minutes to walk across campus, and they have 2 campuses there. So way too spread out, and it's integrated with downtown. So a lot of people
wasn't like what you're looking for.
No. So I liked how NDSU was a lot more compact. You didn't have to walk so far. You can get pretty much anywhere on NDSU's campus within a 10-minute walk. So much easier. But the 2 things that really got me to NDSU was, number one, Coach Justin St. Clair. He just seemed like he was incredibly motivated and had like just a big vision and big goals for things he wanted to do with his throws crew. And he's very intense, and I liked that. Coming from a wrestling background, I liked the intensity that he brought. And he held his athletes to a very high degree or a very high standard, like you have to be at your best and you have to work hard. Like we don't settle, if you're St. Clair's athlete. So I loved that. And then one of the other things that I loved, was the camaraderie at NDSU. All the throwers, they lived together, they hung out together, they trained together.
Community.
Yeah, super close knit. And that's one of the things I was really looking for. I wanted like a built-in group when I got there. And, they pushed each other so hard, and watching them train, all the hooting and hollering and yelling, the energy and the culture there was so good that I wanted to be a part of that. So I'd say those were like even more than the facilities or anything was the camaraderie and
the culture
that's what
St. Clair installed into the team.
Something that I wanted to be a part of. I know, like once I left the visit, like man, I wanted to be a part of that. They have something special going on up there. So did a couple other tours, but like again, I wasn't really in love.
And that was where you were just a 56-foot shot putter at that point, right?
Right. And even the crew at NDSU was not like, they weren't dropping like crazy marks at that time. That was kind of the start of when St. Clair had just gotten there. So I want to say the school record at NDSU when I got there, it might not have even been 17 meters.
Yeah.
It might have been sub 17. And then in the weight throw, it was like 60, 62, 63. Might have been like somewhere around 19 meters. Like it was not very far. But it was raised so much when we got there.
Yeah, exactly. And so at this point, what do you think your end goal was when you were going there? Like, did you think, okay, I'm going to go to the Olympics someday. This is step one. Or was it just a little bit at a time?
The Olympics was kind of a goal that I kind of feel like people put it on me to make it my goal, especially in high school. I remember, I won state in Minnesota. It's not a big deal whatsoever, especially in the grand scheme of things. Like Minnesota state records aren't far. I didn't throw that far. I think even nationally, like I might not have even been in the top 20 my senior year nationally.
Yeah.
Among high school shot putters. So like people are like, oh, you won state. You go to the Olympics someday.
Yeah, all the fans that they mean well. They're not super educated on distances in the sport, but just like, oh, you did good here. You're going to do really good at this spot too.
Right. So like people would ask me, so what's your goal? And I'd be like, yeah, to go to the Olympics. But I didn't really believe it in my head, but I knew that that's what, especially with my friends and family, that's kind of what they wanted to hear. I didn't even really realize, I don't think at that time, like what it meant to be an Olympic shot putter either, like an Olympic caliber shot putter, especially for the USA. Like these distances are just
world class,
monumentally far, like 61 feet with a 12-pound shot put. You got to throw,
especially
like it's 22 meters to make the Olympic team.
Not
72,
more than 22
yeah,
meters.
more than 22 now. So it's
That's outdated.
pretty insane. Like, I had no idea. I didn't even really understand what the world of pro shot putting was at that point. YouTube was around, and I'm sure that there was some videos of throws, but there wasn't much.
There's not many like throws influencers at that point. Because I've been around like what 2015, maybe 20.
I graduated in 2014, so this was pre-videos on Instagram. There was only pictures. MySpace was just being phased out, so like there's no videos online. There was no videos on any social media except for YouTube, but I mean, you couldn't see too much back then.
And now kids these days open up Instagram and there's some P-Train training montages right there.
Yeah, so the game has definitely changed, especially online, and what you can find, the resources that are available weren't there in high school. So I didn't really know what the pro world really was. I actually got my first taste of that. My first outdoor meet in college, we went down to Tempe, Arizona through Arizona State, and I saw Ryan Whiting and Jordan Clark. They were in the flight with us, and I managed to make the final, I think. So I was in the comp with them, and I'm like, okay, this is what it means to be Olympic caliber. And it felt so far off. I think Ryan in that meet threw 2080. He was fresh off winning indoor worlds the previous year, I believe. I don't even know if I threw 17 meters there. I'm like, okay, that's what it means to be elite and high level. He was wearing the Nike kit, and I'm like, okay, that's the goal now. Like, that was so sweet to be able to see and experience that, watch how far those two were throwing. Like, that was the new goal. But I knew that there was an insane amount of space between where I was at and where they were.
Yeah, exactly. So then that was early on in your career. And then you said you started spinning in your sophomore year?
Mm-hmm. So freshman year, it went pretty all right as a glider. I threw 1811 was my PB freshman year. Sophomore year, things started kind of falling apart. I started getting some knee injuries, knee tendinopathy picking up, and the glide was getting harder and it was getting more painful.
So my
marks just kept dropping. Every meet I was getting worse with the glides. So I remember I went up to St. Clair and I'm just like, can I spin this meet? And he's like, according to him, it was his plan to make me spin eventually, like either in my third year or my fourth year. So this was a little ahead of time for what he wanted me to spin. And I think that he wanted it to be kind of like an example of like, you're not ready for this sort of thing.
And like a trial by fire type deal.
Yeah. So in the meet, I was not throwing well. Like it was a home meet. I was spinning. It was going pretty bad. And I was probably throwing in the 16s mostly, not very good, all over the place. I had one throw. So at NDSU, we had 3 rings in our sector, and they were holding a comp simultaneously. In the far right ring were the guys, and I think in the far left were the girls. And I sectored a throw so bad it landed in the middle of the far left sector. So like they had to like, everyone's yelling like, watch out. My throw landed in the wrong sector. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is not going very well.
And it left, not even like,
yeah,
it's far to get left.
I must have pulled off that thing like you wouldn't believe. But I did catch one throw that day. I threw probably about 17 mid, maybe 17 high. It was a season best.
Yeah.
And a big one. And then St. Clair's like, all right, so there's some potential here with that. So for the rest of the year, I was spinning, except for regionals. The spin was going pretty bad at the Edit conference because it was so inconsistent. I really had no idea what I was doing. I went back to the glide for regionals, and I only threw like 17 meters. I couldn't even sniff nationals. And then after that, my third year of college, we started spinning full time. So that's kind of where it took off. I also redshirted outdoors that year. So it gave me a little bit more time to kind of learn the spin.
And put things together that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that third year indoors, I competed indoors, and I threw 1860 or something like that. So I did finally get a PR, and surpassed it. And then from there, the PRs kind of started
Start building.
taking off a little bit more, started understanding what I was doing in the spin a little bit more. I do wish I would have redshirted a little bit sooner to
Take that time.
instead of competing my entire freshman and sophomore year, but I kind of feel like I wasn't really that good then, so it would have been better to redshirt it. But the reality of the Summit League at the time was I was scoring in the Summit.
And that's points for the team.
Yeah, and that was more important, was competing for the team. So I had to compete those years. The team needed the points, and I did all the events except for I did all of them except for javelin. So
yeah,
and the Summit League was not very deep at that time, and so he was able to score in all the events.
And now you had no experience in the hammer or weight in high school, right?
No, none at all. I think I knew what hammer was. I didn't know what weight was till I got to college. But I didn't train it too much my freshman year. We all did weight. Everyone did weight at NDSU. That was kind of just how it was. Didn't practice hammer much though. That was more of like a just go out and have fun and see what you can do with it sort of thing.
And now, how many turns did you do in that?
My freshman year, I didn't compete in hammer at all. Sophomore year, I did, and at conference, my sophomore year, I did a 2-turn into 59 meters and placed, I think, third at conference. So,
and then
that was a 2-turn.
Did you stick with 2 for the hammer after that point?
After that point, I didn't throw it much. My third year, I don't think, and then fourth year, I redshirted outdoors, so I didn't throw it at all. Senior year, I did do 3 turns, even though I was a 2-turner in the weight. I did do 3. It wasn't pretty at all, but I could not get a hammer 2-turn to go as far as the weight throw at all. Not even close.
So then, I guess at what point did the weight throw really start taking off for you?
My freshman year is when I started. I didn't throw it very well. My PBE freshman year in the weight was like 50 feet. I think it was just over 50 feet. But I was having practices that were close to 60, but I just couldn't stay in the ring. I don't even know how many turns I was doing at that time. Couldn't stay in the ring with it, but there was at least some hope that I could throw it far. Sophomore year, it got better. I think I threw 19 something. Junior year, I'm trying to remember. I think I threw like 20 high junior year. And then, or maybe it was 21 mid junior year. I don't really remember. I'd have to look back
Something
for
that.
to see. But then redshirting my fourth year indoors. Again, I was throwing like 21 mid, but I added a lot of distance my senior year because we started taking it a lot more seriously and training it more. I was training weight throw once we moved inside. I was training weight throw like 4 times a week. So I was just getting more reps in, and a typical training session for me would really only be like 10 to 15 throws total.
Yeah.
We didn't want to burn out the weight throw. It was honestly more of a training tool for the shot put than it was for the weight. Like just really high intensity PUDs.
Yeah.
Basically is how we treated it. And I would mess around a little bit with the 3 turns and weight. And I know that you had a question about that. Like, what was my 3-turn PR? It was about the same as my 2-turn PR. I just couldn't stay in the ring. Like the 2-turn, I could hit with utmost confidence and go as hard as possible. Yeah. And I would be in the ring for sure. 3-turn, I could get it, but I wasn't really getting a lot of return for that extra turn. And then it was really iffy on if I would save it or not. I could save it, but more than likely I probably wasn't going to. So we decided to stick with the 2-turn and just try to send it.
Yeah. And so as you've been progressing in the shot, the weight, and all throughout that time, how much did your numbers in the weight room increase from that aspect?
I'd say my numbers were like really steadily increasing throughout every year. I remember I worked really hard in the weight room every summer. So I would come back and like every year we'd do max outs in the fall, always PRing in every lift in the max outs. So, except for maybe the squat, I'm not a good squatter whatsoever. You can see these tiny legs on the camera.
Get low to this guy.
So the squat was never my strong suit at all, but every other lift I was much better at. And I saw PRs go up pretty much every year. The types of numbers I was putting up, let's see, I'm trying to remember my PRs freshman year. It's kind of funny. My freshman year when I got there, when we maxed out in the fall, I benched 365 and I squatted 375. So that's kind of how my bench is, or my squat has always been. It's always been either on par or worse than my bench. Like I'm 100% the shot putter who can bench more than he squats, and I'm not even.
I can't. I don't know who else would be in that club with you.
Not many. Not many can bench more than they squat, but I feel like I kind of make up for it at least a little bit because I have decent Olympic lifts. I don't remember what I got my freshman year and anything. I'm trying to remember my senior year. I think that I snatched, I want to say I got like 315 maybe in the snatch and 405 for cleans, or maybe it was 395 for it, but it was for a double. I can't remember, but it was something around there.
That was your freshman year. You hit that.
My senior.
Senior. Oh, I was sorry. I was going to say, I'm like, oh,
Can't remember my freshman year PBs. I think I got like 205 in snatch, but I had never snatched.
yeah.
Like,
I feel like snatch is kind of hard. Like cleans. I feel like the weight room atmosphere in high school, is mostly just football, and I feel like a lot of times, like, oh, cleans, do that, and then snatch is just kind of dangerous. And if you don't have the setup, you don't have like enough space to bail. I feel like not very many people have that
yeah,
experience.
I definitely wasn't taught how to do it very well in high school. So I think I got 205 my freshman year in the snatch and 265. I did get that in the clean. So that's kind of where I went off of freshman year. And it just always steadily increased to what it was my senior year. But yeah, we took weightlifting very seriously at NDSU. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of like, we would have like 4 to 5 guys on a rack, and we would be like a pit crew and changing the weights of everything so that everybody was, doing it together. Everyone who wasn't doing the lift was cheering on. So
Everyone had a job.
yeah, we had a great weight room culture. It was just like literally like a pit crew. We knew what the next guy wanted, put it on, they lift. And that 4 to 5 person group that we had, it made actually for like good timing. So like by the time it was your turn next, you were ready to go. Like you had enough rest, but it wasn't too much.
Yeah, the way you're getting cold.
Yeah. So we had a really great weight room culture there. I mean, our strength coach, my freshman year, and sophomore year, Ryan Napoli, he was insanely intense, like with the way he was yelling. And like, I remember, we would have dress codes for lifting based on the certain days of the week. So like Tuesdays were like, you had to wear tights on the bottom and you had to wear a tank top on the top. And then Fridays were, I can't remember what we had to wear, but it was like Kesha Fridays. We listened to Kesha on Fridays in the weight room. So
well, at Nebraska, we have Creed Fridays.
there you go. So it was very similar to that. So everybody got really intense, lots of yelling in the weight room. So everybody was really strong up at you.
No, like even looking back at those, I've seen a lot of those videos. Like when I was in high school, looking at what you were doing in college, and just seeing like it was just people are yelling left and right. I'm pretty sure I saw Alex Talley, about to blow a blood vessel in his head, scream in the background of one of your lifts, and it's just really something. You think that was like also like a help, like a big help for your like strength development? Was
Oh yeah, for sure. Having like that kind of motivation in the weight room every single day, like we held each other accountable. Like if someone was dogging it, like you would let them know.
Yeah.
So we pushed each other pretty hard. You didn't really have an option except for to go hard. So yeah, we all got really, really strong up there.
Yeah. So even like a lot of people out there, if you're just trained by yourself, like you're trying to find someone, like just even like my own experience. Like I know there was a practice that my sinuses were bugging me in the fall, and I was front squatting with Jonah, and I was taking like probably 200 pounds off what I should have done on front squat. So then Jonah just started riling me up. And then it was like I didn't even care that I couldn't breathe very good out my nose. And I pulled my ammonia out of my backpack, smelled that, and I think I had a significant PB on the front squat just from I was so amped up. I'm like, okay, fine. Like like if you're gonna do the like heavyweight, I'm gonna do heavyweight, and you're gonna do like one of those like I have to one up the next guy.
Exactly. So having like that weight room culture and energy,
And it was something I even think I could do.
yeah, it definitely brings out the best in you if you're able to have a good crew to lift with versus it's hard to be motivated alone. I think we all, especially like if you get into that post collegiate world, a lot of your training is self motivated. So that's one of the things kind of I miss being a pro, having that just insane energy and crew to train with.
Yeah, I have the whole squad yelling, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. No, I and now I'm even been out of college for a couple of months now. Even the YMCA is not quite the same in that aspect. When you're going for a big lift, like no one else really cares what you're doing. They're just like, quit yelling, don't bang the weights on the floor.
Yeah, everybody's doing their own thing in like the public gyms nowadays. So there's not any sort of energy. There are some like powerlifting gyms where you can find that, but it's
Yeah, shout out to Omaha Barbell.
yeah, there you go.
No, highly recommend for everyone in Omaha. Go check that place out. There's some big guys there. But no. So then I guess kind of going back on track here to just kind of your story and how you're getting things on the up and up. So then your senior year, is that when everything you felt like really started clicking? Or it was a kind of a surprise that you started throwing as far as you did?
I would even go back a year to say junior year was my breakout year. That's where I started throwing marks that were, people started paying attention to. Trying to think, shot put. So I was kind of steadily increasing. I was like throwing 19s. I threw 19 high pretty much all of outdoor season. And it was kind of funny. I went into a slump my junior year where there was two meets. I fouled out of one of them. I fouled out of the Long Beach meet outdoors. And there were some good international guys, like Marcus Thompson was there. So I knew it was going to be like, that was a bigger meet. There was some really good throwers there. So that was a huge disappointment to foul out of that one. And then Drake Relays was the following week. I didn't foul out of it, but I fouled all my good throws. So
It just felt like you didn't get anything out of it.
right, like I think I only threw like 18 high, and I had been throwing 19 high, so it was like a meter off. And I fouled some 19 high throws. I was like, dang. Then we had a home meet, and like this was like probably the meet that I can attribute to being like this changed like the course of my career. I had picked up some good cues that week in practice. Like Justin gave me a lot of good mental cues and like gave you some motivating like one-on-one talks like, hey, we got to get back on the right track here. And I found a great cue in the middle of the ring, like trying to really just get like a long sprint. And that was the first meet that I had found like, oh my God, this is what separation on the throw is. Like I was catching that ball back so far. That day was the first day I hit 20 meters at the home meet. It was also the first day I hit 21 meters.
At 19, 21, I guess I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I went from 19 to 21, but it wasn't a real 21 meter throw because if you go way back on my Instagram, you can actually find the video. We had a retaining wall at the back of the section.
Oh, okay.
I hit the retaining wall on the fly about a foot up. So like it hit it high and we were like, what do we do? Like, how do we measure this throw? Like, you can't just like do a math equation and be like, oh, this is where it would have landed with this trajectory and the angle, whatever. The NCAA rules and probably the rules for just shot put in general, you have to measure up to the wall.
And that's
the
it.
wall was 2090 and it hit a foot up the wall. So it was a 21 meter throw. Probably in reality it was around like 2110, maybe 2120. And so that throw, like 2090, that was NCAA leading in 2018. That was like my breakout. It was that one, especially in the shot put. I'd been throwing 59 in discus, which is respectable, but that was my, whoa, like that put me on the map sort of thing.
Yeah.
Started paying attention.
59 in discus, that's like, that's like a good throw. That's a good thrower. But you don't see too many people throwing that like post eligibility competitions.
And then the following week, I backed it up and set a new PB on paper at our conference meet of 2096. That was kind of backed it up. That was still NCAA leading by a bit. And there was a lot of good throwers that year. A lot of guys over 20 meters that year. So going into the national meet, I laid an egg junior year. I threw really bad. I threw 1960 and finished in 10th. I was just a few centimeters out of making the final. I warmed up really good in that meet. I just didn't compete well. And that was even to this day, I think that was the deepest 8th place or even 9th place. I think top 8 or 9 in that final were all over 20 meters. So, and then Denzel Komenensha pulled the double that year, and he won with around 2060 or something. Tunde got second by just like 2 centimeters or something like that, really close. So, like, that was an incredibly deep year, in the shot. And then I followed it up the next day. I made it to discus to nationals too, and I finished 10th. And actually, you know who kicked me out of that was Nick Percy from Nebraska. So that was a stinger, and that was a lot of motivation for me going into my senior year. 2 10th places, and I think I missed both finals by a combined 5 centimeters. So it was like incredibly close to making it in both, and that was really motivating for me the next.
To not make it close ever again.
Yeah, I didn't want that feeling again of just like missing finals, vastly underperforming in the shot put. It hurt. So that was like my whole motivation my senior year was like, I don't ever want to make that. I don't ever want to feel it again, and I don't want it to be close. So I was real motivated throughout the training that whole year. Like, we had a mission to win the national title in shot put that I choked the previous year. And yeah, that was really the goal for the following year.
Because what did you open up your final year for indoor?
Indoors, I threw 21:32, I think, in the shot put, and then 23:70 or something in the weight throw. So like starting off the season with an exclamation point, throwing a PR in both events, big PR in both events. And then from there, just like
Building
to stay motivated and keep the foot on the gas.
Yeah. Then it's kind of funny, around that period is when I started like learning more about the throws. And at the Mark Hall again, that was one of your bigger meets, if I remember correctly, at indoor. That was on my visit to Nebraska.
Really?
So on my Snapchat, I have a memory of watching you throw. I don't even remember. I was like 21 something, but I just remember I'm like, oh, there's an Otterdahl guy, and his brother also throws. And I saw Trevor, and Trevor was just looked real lean and tall at that point. And I was just like, oh, that guy throws like 21 in shot. Like, he doesn't look that big. And then I look, and there's Payton in the corner of the Bob Devaney with his headband and short shorts, like in the shadows, just lurking. And then you came out and started just throwing bombs. Like, oh, okay, there he is. And yeah,
the visuals were a little bit different back then. I had hair down to my nipples almost, which is very different from what I'm working with now. But yeah, very different look. I was going by the King of the North back in those days because, you know, NDSU being such a far north school, and that was when Game of Thrones was really popular. So King in the North was my nickname then. Yeah, that Nebraska meet too, that was my first meet over 70, and I hit 71 that day. So that was another big like milestone jump.
Yeah, I was like, dang, I'm like, that's like the big dog in the country for college. I'm like, oh, like that. It was one of those. It was like very eye opening. I was like, oh, those lines in the back, because I went to Nebraska for all those track camps. I was pretty familiar with the area, and I never got to see anyone really utilize a 70-foot line.
Yeah, Nebraska, that is the last distance line in the sector, and then I think the one after that, like the end of the sector, is like 85 or something.
So yeah, so it's one of those. Is just like when you see something that occurs a lot, and then you see something very abnormal happen. It's just very like oh, like this is a big deal.
The senior year just continued out really well through indoor season, very highly motivated, and it even was okay through outdoors. I actually got the P train was derailed my senior year with a pulled muscle in my back, like kind of my thoracic on the right side. To this day, I don't even know exactly what it was, but I kept re-injuring it because I was trying to get back to competing shape so fast. And it was one of those things that like I remember each time I pulled it, I couldn't even stand, like, even like standing was too much. Like my body weight was too much on it. So I had to lay down. Like that was the only way I could get any sort of respite from it. And so I actually ended up re-pulling that muscle. Like I would get a little better and then I would come back too quick. And I would just not really do the right things for it. Like I was trying to rehab the heck out of it, but I was trying to get back so fast that I just kept digging my hole deeper. And I never climbed back out of it my entire senior year. I was able to get back over 20 meters, but I never saw 21 again. That I after I hurt my back, which is right before Drake relays. So it was a big disappointment in the outdoor season. It was a little bit better for discus. It was actually the runner-up in discus my senior year by 5 centimeters. So I was real close to winning a national title in 3 events, 3 different events in the same year, but didn't quite pull it off.
So looking back at that moment of like now you understand like you were just coming at it too quick, trying to like rehab too fast. What would you have done differently? Like, I know the obvious answer is like wait a little bit longer, but like how would you know?
Well, one of the things, like my biggest regret in the sport actually is how I injured my back. It was the morning that we were supposed to leave for Drake relays. We had a lift that morning. It was a 6 a.m. lift and I overslept, like still made it to the lift, but I did not warm up. I just went straight into lifting that day. No warm up, 6 a.m. And there was still snow on the ground in cold North Dakota. And I was box squatting and it was the last rep of my last set. Coming up off the box, I felt like a click in my back and like, okay, this is hurting really bad.
Yeah, like
something is wrong. So my biggest regret was not showing up that morning to warm up. So if I could go back and change anything in the sport, that's what I would have done, is wake up earlier and get a proper warm up in before that lift.
Yeah.
But yes, after that, just rushing too much to get back instead of kind of focusing on like those smaller meets before nationals. They didn't matter. The national meet is what mattered my senior year outdoors. So like I should have taken some time and let it rehab properly instead of like keeping my foot on the gas and just trying to get back to where I was too soon. I should have just slowed down a bit to keep my eye on what was important and focus on what was important, maybe instead of trying to, like throw really big at that meet. I mean, I like that Drake relays meet, I still competed in it with my back all messed up because all of the pros from Chula Vista came out to Drake that year and I got bumped up into the invite. So I was throwing against Krauser and Tunde and John Jones and all those guys. And like, so I was really motivated. I wanted to throw against these are all the top guys from the US and I wanted to throw well against them. So I just didn't back off like I should have.
Yeah. No, I think that's something a lot of people can get some fun lesson for their future references of just knowing that you have to have your big picture you're working for. And you got to keep in mind of, is this going to put you in the right direction? Or is this going to take like a baby step forward and 3 steps back the next day?
For sure. That's one of the things that since I've been post-collegiate, I've kind of figured that out a little bit more of like, kind of got to take injuries a little bit more seriously because, I mean, especially now where this is your career and how you make money and and how you represent sponsors and all of that, how you get sponsors, you have to be at your best. So you can't really mess around with injuries that much as a pro. And I've taken a much more, not like cautious, like finding, I guess the main thing is finding ways to put in good amounts of work while not re-aggravating the injury. So like, I'll talk about this right now. I just got a PRP injection in my knee almost 3 weeks ago. Tomorrow it'll have been 3 weeks. And so that's kind of sidelined me because for those that don't know, like PRP injections, they take out some of your blood, spin it in a centrifuge, separate the platelets from and the plasma from the red blood cells, re-inject the platelets into the area that's bothering you. So you're basically taking all of the healing aspects of your blood and getting a high concentration of that injected into where it's bothering you. So you're using your body's own healing to heal an area of the body.
Amplified way.
You're right. So that causes a huge inflammation reaction. So like my knee's been swollen now for 3 weeks. Like the mobility is still not there. So I've had to find ways to train around that. So since then, like I can't do any leg lifts with that. At least for the first 2 weeks, I couldn't. So I had to find ways to kind of train around that. So it was more of like, okay, I can't bend my legs. So that's doing RDLs and good mornings to strengthen at least my posterior chain, because like I can't, my quad is kind of useless right now. So finding ways to strengthen it without it, getting my throws, like for those 2 weeks, I took all my throws seated on a box into a beam just to take my legs out of the equation and let it heal. So you kind of have to find ways to get work in and still like you're still marching forward in progress, other than trying to like rush to get back and, oh man, nah, my knee's even worse off. So I got to.
Yeah, exactly. I guess one thing that like about throwers, I feel like all throwers are just scrappier than most other sports, where we're used to throwing out in the rain, throwing in the snow, or if your ring's closed, you go find a slab of concrete. Like it's just, it's like we're very used to getting the short end of the stick and having to be adaptable. That I feel like it's like a really interesting trait that seems to be very common.
Yeah, there's definitely a macho culture for especially like men's throws, but women's as well. But that you're tough and like nothing bothers you, can't get hurt. You have to stick it out, man up. Like you have to be smart more than anything, and that's kind of what can really separate you sometimes and get you to the next level. Is like, how can I be smart about this and still march forward? Doesn't matter if it's at a slow pace. Progress is progress. You want to get. I've always one of my wrestling coaches in high school said, 1% better every day. So it doesn't matter how you find that 1%, as long as you're not stepping backward, as long as you're getting a little bit better every day, you're going to make improvements no matter what.
Yeah. So during that time when like you're kind of limited and you're really trying to stay like off your feet more, or just stay relaxed and not try to think about doing activities that limits your mobility, what is your favorite like leisure activity to help you just feel like you're doing something enjoyable and not like overdoing it?
I definitely have quite a lot of leisure activities. That's probably one of my issues. I have kind of too many hobbies. So at home, for those of you that know me, I am big into pets. I have,
and not just the cute and fluffy,
not just the fluffy kind. Like I have a bunch of pet snakes and lizards and geckos, and so a lot of like my leisure time is like I love. Like, I don't know what it is about them. I love watching them and like their natural habitat and how they interact with it. I think what I like about snakes so much is just how they move. Like they don't have arms and legs. They just slither. And that to me is just so cool. And watching them do that. So I think that for me, I get a lot of joy from just making their enclosure as close to nature as I can, and watch them interact with it, like make sure that they not only just like survive, but they thrive.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really get out of it. But apart from that, apart from the pets and the reptiles and stuff, I really enjoy playing video games. I got a gaming setup, I got a gaming PC.
Gaming channel.
And I do have some gaming videos up on my YouTube if you're into that sort of thing. Lately I've been playing a lot of Marvel Rivals. I'm the guy that mains the tanks or the vanguards. So Thor has been my most played character. Other than that, I like Age of Empires, your Skyrim, your actually been playing a new one called Enshrouded. If you can look into that, it's early access on Steam. You could check that out. So yeah, spending a lot of time gaming. I don't really watch too much TV. When I do, it's kind of like usually in the morning. I'll throw something on the TV, either YouTube or actually the series that I've been binging lately has been King of the Hill. Trying to crank my way through that one. So I'm almost done with it. I'm on season 10 of 13. So
you can see the finish then.
Yep. Close to the finish.
And then one thing I always thought was really interesting is you have a deep appreciation for a lot of the Japanese culture through anime. What was it like at your like first Olympics, getting to be at like the main like hotspot, like where like all that came from?
So I was actually fortunate enough. I went to Japan for the first time in 2018, just for vacation. One of my best friends is half Japanese, so his dad's Japanese national. So we went and stayed with his family over there, and his dad's old friends, and really got to see quite a lot of Japan. Like we bought the rail pass, so we had unlimited rail rides for the 2 weeks that we were there. Went all the way from we stayed in Osaka mainly because that's where his family lived. But we did Kyoto, Tokyo, down to Hiroshima, went to the atomic bomb museum that they had there, went up to Niigata, which is like kind of a smaller town on the north side of Japan, went to the beaches there. So you really got to experience a lot of Japanese culture then, and it was just awesome. Like I was in heaven seeing all of the crazy lights, electronics, futuristic, everything, riding the bullet trains, seeing all of my favorite anime and manga stuff. And it comes out earlier there than it does in the US. So like I was seeing like early stuff there for some of my favorite shows, and I couldn't read any of it because it was all
exactly.
nothing there is in English. So that was just awesome. So going back there for Tokyo for the first Olympics was kind of a shame because I knew what I was missing with all the COVID lockdowns. We had to stay in the Olympic Village the entire time, unless we were training or competing. It's the only time we got to leave. So it was kind of a bummer to know what I was missing out on. Like, oh man, like I'd been to all these places in Tokyo, like we're driving past them. I want to go again. But I was also thankful that I had gotten to experience that. So thankfully I was, and even this summer, we have the opportunity to go back again for Outdoor Worlds in September.
Do you finally see some stuff again?
Yeah, not only see some stuff, hopefully there will be no type of COVID lockdowns or anything this time around, but also it'll be kind of a chance for my family to go to the Olympics that they never got to in 2021 by going to the world champs there. So they'll get to experience kind of what they missed a few years ago.
Yeah. So then for this prior Olympics, what was it like knowing that they were able to have your family with you? You had your girlfriend coming to watch?
Yes, came with a girlfriend and left with a fiance. So that was super special to be able to propose in the city of love in front of the Eiffel Tower like that. Having my family there was just amazing. That's what I really missed in the first Olympics, like more so than competing in front of a huge crowd. Just having my family being able to be there and support. A lot of them was the first time in Europe or their second time, like definitely first time in Paris. Some of them came to Budapest last year for Worlds or the previous year for Worlds. So they had been to Europe, but like being in a new place like that and experiencing it is awesome. So, and then apart from that, it was just nice getting a more conventional Olympic experience because COVID was its thing. So getting to experience a normal Olympic Games is great. And like I'm not saying that I miss anything for COVID like in 2021. Like Tokyo was its own unique experience because of COVID. Like it wasn't a bad experience by any means. Some Olympians might say otherwise, but I still thought it was an amazing experience either way, given the circumstances. So I'm glad that I got to experience both ways of having it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I guess with the opportunity coming up to go back this year for Worlds, what would you say like is your big like training goals for right now with your knee and everything? Like, do you have a timeline for when you're going to open up in your first competition?
Yeah, right now the big focus is getting healthy, obviously with my knee, and still dealing with some back issues. Like all of last year, I had a bulge disc in my back, so still getting those ones figured out. It's definitely a lot better than last year, but it could be even better yet if I can get those right. So getting healthy is the main thing. Throwing wise, improving the technique. There's still a couple things that I just like every time I see myself throw that to me just seem kind of like glaring, like, wish that I would have improved on that, or wish I could improve on that. And that's getting my right foot turning better. I think that I have one of the worst right feet in the center of the ring. Like it does not turn very well. I don't work the ground very well, and I jump too much in the finish. So getting those things ironed out, as well as my left side My left arm does like nothing in my throw for me. It's always just like out here. Like I don't know how to block with my left arm. So I think that that's leaving some on the table. Those are kind of like my biggest cues right now for training or trying to
Yeah.
get those.
I think it's nice to know for a lot of people that are still like learning about the throws, and even someone that you got fourth at the Olympics, you're one of the best in the world, and you're still able to look at what you're doing and just you're seeing a bunch of issues. I think that's really important to know that even at like the highest level, you're still having that mind space. Because I feel like a lot of younger kids, like they'll see themselves throw and they'll see some glaring thing for them, and that's just like hurts them to watch, and it's like very frustrating. And then they'll turn to you or Krauser or all the other professional throwers out there and see them like, wow, why can't I be like them? And it's just perfect. But
Right.
yeah,
I think that that's kind of one of the special traits that a lot of high level athletes have is like, you don't get satisfied. There's no complete, like if you get complacent, like, yeah, I'm pretty good right now. That's when you're going to start.
yeah, that's when you get past.
Yeah. You
That's
get
when,
passed by people that are hungrier than you. So like always having the desire to improve, just like in the drive and the motivation in that, like that's how you get to the high level and break through to even higher levels. So, um, a lot of high level guys are like that. Like I know Krauser's the same way, and I'm assuming Joe's the same way too. Like they see their throws and they see ways of improvement, ways like, oh man, that could have been better.
yeah. So it doesn't matter what level.
Table.
Yeah.
And I like to say like there's no end to the tape. You know,
Yeah.
we count up, we don't count down. Like there theoretically for like sprinters and runners, there is a number that they could reach 0 or 0.01. Theoretically, they're not gonna, but they could. Versus the tape does not end. Like there's no limit to what you can throw.
Yeah.
There's no threshold, so you can always improve no matter what. You can always do something better.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting way to put that. I like that. There is no end.
Yeah, definitely not. There's no satisfaction.
Yeah.
The number can always be bigger.
And then one thing that I think a lot of people that follow your content would be upset I didn't bring up is you post a lot of food that looks really good. Do you enjoy cooking, or what is do you more of it just the dietary restrictions and planning for high level performance?
One of the big differences this year versus other years, and I was doing a little bit last year, but even more so this year, is I'm eating a lot cleaner. I've tried to cut out the crap. I'm trying not to eat as many sweets as I did or like processed foods. I've been trying to eat more whole foods and make them healthier, cut out all the crap in my diet. And I feel like that's making it a lot well, I'm feeling better with it. Like I'm not as sleepy, or I'm sleeping better, feeling more energy for practice, like not getting as tired. But the one thing that's making it hard is making it hard for me to gain weight, because I am trying to gain. I think that, yeah, I'm trying to be around 305, or at least above 305 is my goal. Like I want that to be the bottom threshold. Right about now, I'm sitting around 302, so I'm getting closer. In the off season, I always eat like really clean. Like I try to cut fat when I'm not training. I don't want to just eat like whatever. Like a thrower's off season is like opposite of like a runner's. Like the runners, they want to eat all the crap and they want to eat the things that they can't eat in season. I'm kind of the opposite. Like I don't want to eat too much. I want to cut down on how many calories I'm eating to try to lose some of the excess fat in that off season instead of getting fatter. And then
I feel like throwing's weird in that aspect because we have, if you look at it, like probably one of our most important things to my experience understanding is trying to hit like your protein goal. And protein is such like a heavy macro that there's a lot of associated calories that come with that. I feel like during the competition with traveling, it's a lot harder to keep like a lower calorie mark while hitting the higher mark. So you think that kind of plays into that of when you're in season, it's trying to find food to fill that.
it's definitely harder, especially on the road. Like when you're on the circuit and you're in these meets, like over in Europe, it can be hard to find food. Mostly because like when we're staying in the hotel and they're providing the food for us, they have certain hours that we can eat, and you only get 3 meals a day, which, as throwers, I'm eating like 5 to 6 meals a day normally on my own time. So the frequency is a lot harder to find stuff. And sometimes the hotels are nowhere near, restaurants or food, and sometimes these countries don't have like DoorDash or so it's pretty hard to like find food like and I've found that I usually lose weight when I go over to Europe just for that reason. And not only that, but like their foods are also pretty healthy over there too. So it's hard to keep your mass up when you're, especially in Europe. Um, yeah, I always come back later.
Yeah. And then I guess from our Q&A I put out, we had one question talking about the importance of like your diet and overall nutrition. Do you have any big like staples in your what do you think about like your meal prepping or whatever you're going to eat in terms of what you go through in terms of if you have certain supplements you think or you live or die by or anything in that ballpark?
I wouldn't say I live or die by any supplements. A good probiotic is one thing that I'll always recommend to people is just to have, good gut health. That's probably the only thing I'd be like, yeah. And of course, creatine and is one of the big things. Creatine is like one of the only supplements that I actually notice a difference whether I'm on it or off it. For me, it kind of feels like you're not stronger on creatine, but it feels like you don't tire as fast. So like, say I could only get 3 reps of something if I'm off creatine. If I'm on it, I can get 5. Like that to me feels like the difference, whether being on it or off it. And then also the weight gain from the water retention is nice too. I would say from a diet, like what I eat so much rice. It's unfulfilled. Rice is like the base of my diet. Like I know protein is supposed to be, but I eat so much rice, and I do eat a ton of protein too.
Do you vary your rice at all, or is it just plain white rice?
It's either white rice or basmati. That's the only alteration. I do mix in some brown rice, and I like to put lentils in there too. I know that's not a rice, but that's just some added protein in there. But the nice thing about eating rice bowls for pretty much every meal like I do is you can tweak it so much to keep it fresh. The rice doesn't change, but I'll throw steak on there, ground beef, chicken, whatever, like pork, like pulled pork or something. It doesn't matter. Just you can always switch it and keep it fresh. The sauces that you put on there, you can alternate. So like I never get sick of eating rice. And if I do get sick of like something that's on there, like the protein, and you just switch it to a different one, salmon. Like you can put so many different things all on rice that it keeps it fresh and you're still getting a ton of calories and carbs. So you're feeling highly energized all the time. Switching gears here. I remember I didn't answer a question earlier for opening my outdoor season. No indoors for me this year, as you've probably figured out by now. Like we're already almost through indoor season. I won't be opening outdoors until probably the Drake relays. So end of April will be when it gets started. Still got some time yet to build a bigger base this outdoor season.
Yeah, but Drake would be a good place to open up.
It's nice because it's close, and my family being all up in Minnesota, they're able to come out to this one. This is like the only meet that's close to home that they can drive to. Every other meet has to be flown to. So I do like competing at Drake, and it's probably, like Tracktown USA in Eugene is like, they're the biggest meets, but I'd say outside of that, Drake Relays is like the biggest trip.
100%. Like if you're anywhere in the Midwest where it's 2-3 hours away, like I've been there a couple of times, and it's one of those, it's really fun. Like it's one of those, I feel like we don't really have a super big pro track atmosphere in the US. And if there's like a way that visualizes what it could be, I think Drake's like a good place to see.
Yeah, that's one of the only meets that actually integrates pro events with the collegiate and high school. Like there's all levels at that meet.
I can't remember for sure, but there even might be like some middle school relays going on or something like that too.
Yeah. So like truly, no matter what, like if you're the parents of your kids, like you get to see middle school all the way up to the highest level in the pro.
How cool is it if you're just a developing young kid qualified for a big meet and there's some of like the people you look up to,
Very cool. The only downside about Drake Relays is that you'll have to bring some warm clothes and an umbrella because that Iowa late, or I guess it'd be kind of like an early spring Iowa weather is incredibly unpredictable and inconsistent. So that's the only downside of Drake is the weather kind of sucks. But other than that,
yeah, pay attention to the radar. There might be a tornado or 3
Yeah, that was the case last time that we were there. I was actually I was at Jethro's barbecue, and all these crazy storms were coming through. Like they were sweeping across the entire Midwest. There was actually a huge tornado that hit right by where we're sitting right now, like less than a mile away from where we are. And that same storm came through Des Moines when we were there, and produced a tornado just outside of town. So it was.
I think, like, being from the Midwest, and I guess Minnesota's close enough to Midwest, or Midwest enough that, like, I don't really get scared of tornadoes. It's just like a common thing to just, get to your basement. I always thought it was really funny watch the reactions of all the people who aren't from the Midwest freaking out and just
I won't lie, I was a little nervous for this one when I was in that barbecue joint because they did not have a basement, and it was on a hill, so like pretty exposed place, and so they had to move all the guests. Like the power was surging in there. Like, oh man. And one of the women who worked there, they're like, there's a confirmed tornado touchdown and it's headed this way. And like,
yeah, this is
like,
the end.
I'm in a barbecue place and like there's a tornado.
So I had a way different experience. I was at a Mexican restaurant down the street, and it was raining, and it was we had one of our team managers who was from Germany with us, and another manager that was from a small town, Nebraska. And like him and I are pretty comfortable. The other guy, not so much. He's pretty nervous. And the sirens went off as we get into the restaurant, and they just turned the volume up over the sirens. And so you can't really hear anything. You could just kind of look outside, and it was raining real hard. But it was one of those, they just kind of like brushed it off, like, whatever.
Yeah, they moved us into the kitchen at this barbecue place. Like I was in the storeroom because that was the only place that didn't have windows. And so I was just like sitting among the barbecue sauce, just like watching. Like, okay, it should be past us in like 10 minutes. So we're either going to be okay after 10 minutes or we're going to get swept away next to all this barbecue.
Exactly. But besides that, fantastic meat. Highly recommend.
Yes, that was the first time that there's ever been tornado warnings at the Drake relays. That was just a crazy storm that came through.
No, exactly. But just kind of moving on from that part. That'll be a great spot to open up for the year. Then are the other big meets in the U.S. they're planning on going to?
They haven't announced the schedule yet for outdoors. What with Worlds being so late, Worlds is the last meet of the year in mid-September. I'm really hoping that they push a lot of these pro meets back over summer. I'm probably going to start my season off. I mean, after Drake relays, I'm probably going to start my season off in Europe because there's some of the Diamond League they've released the Diamond League schedule. So I think it's May 25th is for at least the shot putters, it's in Rabat, Morocco. So that will be like the first real outdoor go. Will be starting there. And then June 6th is, I think, the Rome Diamond League. So I'll be filling that kind of 2-week space with some meets, hopefully around Europe, and then come back to the U.S. For maybe close to 2 months. We'll see. Like, again, we got to see the schedule. I want to compete at Ironwood in Coeur d'Alene, and there's pre-classic Diamond League shortly after that, I believe. So be doing a big chunk of the season in the U.S. I'm just hoping that they'll have some opportunities to compete. Like, I would love to go down to the Tucson Throws Fest, depending on when it is. If it's too early, I might not go this year. But if it's a good timing that works with the schedule, yeah, I'd love to be there. Same with LA. They always have the LA Grand Prix there, and then the New York one, but they don't always have shot put there. So hopefully the schedule will work out that I can compete a lot in the U.S. up through U.S. champs and then head back over to Europe for the rest of the Diamond Leagues after that. But I guess we'll just have to see what happens because they usually don't announce the outdoor schedule until kind of late March after indoor season is concluded.
Yeah. Well, I guess kind of wrap things up here on our podcast. I really appreciate you letting us kind of go in depth on like the highs and lows of starting off and as a glider and working your way up, and 2-time Olympian, and you're still just a young lad in the space of the throws with plenty of room to grow, and It's awesome to have someone that really inspired me when I was learning how to throw. Like, I even remember when Coach St. Clair first came to Nebraska, he asked a couple of us, like, do you want to watch Payton throw? And I was like, right when you made the Olympics, we were tailgating just about at the Rock or outdoor space. We grabbed lunch to the cafeteria in the summer, and we were just laying on top of like the rocks, just waiting for practice to start. So I really appreciate you being able to come on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for letting me kind of tell my story a little bit. I hope I didn't dominate the mic time too much. I feel like I was talking quite a lot. But yeah.
Well, we want to hear what you have to say.
I'm glad that I can kind of speak about my experiences a little bit, as kind of like, I would say that I wasn't the most elite thrower at a young age, and kind of where I've gotten now to making 2 Olympic teams and hopefully more teams in the future. But yeah, still have some lofty goals, and very motivated to keep working at them. So follow along on the career. Thank you for the support.
Yep. So make sure to give P-Train a follow, stay up to date, see all the animals, all the fuzzy ones and the not so fuzzy ones. But P-Train and I got a big Yu-Gi-Oh game to attend to after this. So that's all for this episode. So thanks again for watching, and feel free to subscribe and follow along as we keep growing this channel. But peace.
Be sure to follow for more thrower content.